Welcome back to WD Magic Cast for the week of May 19th, 2024. This is episode 257. WD Magic Cast, the show about the mouse, the marvels, the galaxy, and beyond. I'm your host, Matthew Graken. In this week's show, Sir Isaac and I sit down and discuss the remaining half or the second half of X-Men 97, the Disney Plus show about continuing the story of the 90s animated series X-Men that used to be on Fox on Saturday morning cartoons. Disney Plus brought it back, and we're breaking. We talked about the first half. We're talking about the second half now, and boy, I think we got a few things to say about this. Some things may surprise you.
Yes.
Let us know what you think. Make sure to join in the conversation on our social media, where we can be found just about everywhere at WD Magiccast on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Threads. We are out there. Make sure also subscribe to our YouTube channel, where we will be posting some things on there. I have some things planned coming up in the next couple of months that will be on YouTube, and also yeah, we can also listen to this fine show on there. And speaking of this fine show, make sure to help us out. Go to RT Public Store and get some really cool merchandise that we have available on there, designed by yours truly, Isaac. And he, we got shirts, tank tops, stuff for the summer, stuff ready for the winter as well. Hoodies, if you wear them in the summer, you by all means be our guest. This way you get something yourself and help out the show as well. And on that bombshell, on with the show. As I mentioned in the introduction, X-Men 97 is the follow-up to the original X-Men show from the 90s that ran on Fox Kids on Saturday mornings, and basically stayed along lines with the X-Men and some of the storylines and story arcs that would go on there. But in a Saturday morning cartoon fashion. And very, very 90s, very nostalgic. Now that people have grown up and Disney decided, since everything is back under the wheelhouse of the of Marvel, which is a subsidiary of Disney now, they brought the show back and kind of ran with it. And as Isaac and I talked about it just a couple of weeks ago, our thoughts on the first half of it, which we fairly much enjoyed. We thought very highly of it, and we're curious where they were going. Well, the show has now run its course. It is done with this season. Isaac immediately texted me and said, "Do we really have to talk about it?" And I said, "Yeah, I think we kind of need to talk about it, because we mentioned in the first part we really should follow up." And after much convincing and much consideration and maybe a little bribery, we have Isaac with us here, who will discuss what's going on. Don't mind his blue skin and the fact that he's been around since the ancient Egyptian days and maybe longer. Isaac, how you doing?
I'm doing well, my friend, man. I'm totally doing well. But yes, like you just started off, man. This was an incredible image. But before I start this off, I'm presenting the picture to Matt right now, and Matt is giggling right now in his shoes. That image is a shirtless man by the name of Bio Di Maio. And the reason why I'm presenting this image is
I
this
thought that
man
was
is
you.
get in there. But the reason why I'm putting this strange why am I introducing this image of a shirtless man? Because this man is responsible. He is the lead writer for X-Men 97. Could I have chose any other image out there than this picture? 100%, but that's not the point. This man has been responsible for writing both seasons 1 and 2 and into a little bit of 3. So, and the only reason why I'm posting this up, if the quality were to ever dip somewhere between seasons 2 heading into 3, and it's not that good leading in. It's the reason because this man's not on the show. This man has brought the writing on the show has been incredibly amazing. I have to say, foremost, I think the work that he's brought onto the show is next level. I and Matt, I have to come to admit I was a little concerned when X-Men 97 was announced for Disney Plus, only because of the fear that it was more of a nostalgia grab from the 90s. And that clearly was not the case. This show not only grew up with us, this show was not afraid to talk about some tough, difficult subjects. I thought I think the writing was really brought up a notch in terms of a lot of the characters and their viewpoints of what's happening in society. The action clearly was another level in terms of the cool moments and stuff in this show, as well as some of the eye-dropping moments in the show. And this show really took me from surprise from thoughting that okay, it's a nice little novelty to just get people on Disney Plus to me waiting for every week for another episode to drop. Like what happened next? This show done such a great job with the cliffhangers, and especially I thought after episode 5, I thought nothing would have been able to top that. But the 3-part finale leading to that just was pure icing on the cake. I thought this was a fantastic first season of X-Men 97, man. Well done. Completely well done. I have I have a little qualms with it, but we'll definitely get into this topic. But from what I'm standing, great season 1.
I kind of have to go agree with you, and I just sent Isaac an image of the man who will be responsible for keeping his man involved, and that would be one Kevin Feige, standing next to a very hairy Hugh Jackman.
Very hairy Hugh Jackman. He's actually in the mode right now, which is great.
Yeah, well, it goes along with everything. Yeah, I mean, it's not perfect. There was a few things that I particularly towards the end that I kind of just went, wait a second, what? I guess in hindsight, all things can be relatively forgiven, but yeah, all in all, like you said, the writing definitely matured with the show. They weren't afraid to pull punches.
No.
We will get into some spoilers shortly, but overall, I thoroughly enjoyed this show. Being a fan of the original, and like you said, I thought at first it was just going to be all right, going to be nostalgic, kind of like what they did this with Clone Wars, kind of wrapped it up. They're going to do that with X-Men 97, kind of wrap things up in make it a little neater than what they left it before. And no, it wasn't that, and it was a pleasant surprise. Yeah, so when we get into it about our ratings, since we've been going in on for a little bit, so let's give our ratings. I guess we could vote our MVPs, and then we can get into the spoilers. How's that sound?
I love that. Let's do it, man.
All right. So out of 10, Isaac, how would you rate? I guess we're doing the series on a whole, right?
Yeah, so we'll do the series.
X-Men 97 on a whole.
If we're again from 1 to 10, I'm gonna give this. I'm gonna give this a 9. It's a high 9. Again, this. I was incredibly pleased by the entire show. Like I said, the writing was incredibly top notch in terms of the discussions that they were willing to go into. Now, that's not to say that all the writing was great. There were some cheesy, hokey moments. Some were delivered by Cyclops through most of the series. And it could get a little bit melodramatic too, but I kind of expected that in terms of where the show was made in the era, where there was a lot of melodramatic. If you think about your soap operas, it kind of had those moments too in terms of the crazy love triangles that were presented. But I didn't think it was too overt as it was maybe back in the '90s. But no, everything I enjoyed everything about this because again, in terms of maturity, it gave you stakes. The show really left you with big time stakes, and there was just great moments that were put into it that felt it really felt big. It really felt big, and they didn't hold back. They didn't hold back on certain characters too, during this first season run.
So yeah, out of 10, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with a 9 as well. And yes, there were some hokey moments, but I can't lay it all on Cyclops, Professor Xavier. I'm looking at you. The
He had some moments too. Yeah, no, I agree. I think everybody a little bit had some hokey moments though. But yes, if there was a race between just cheesy, it's a 1 and 2 dead heat between Cyclops and Professor X. I definitely could see
yeah.
that.
But I mean, overall, the storytelling, they got bigger and bigger as the show went on. I was curious why you needed a 3-part finale. I was a little nervous that there's going to be a 3-part finale. I was going to expect by the third part, it was just they were going to just burn it out and there's going to be nothing left. But they didn't. They kept going and going and going, and it just got grander and grander, and the stakes got higher. That it's I can't knock the show too much. So it was so much more than I was expecting and hoping for. It was the show that I didn't know I needed.
No, no,
So,
it was a show that was unexpected. That kind of came out of everywhere, and this was coming from right now. Another show that I went from another fantastic show in Shogun that's on Hulu. If
I still
anybody
getting there.
if if anybody
Still
hasn't
getting there.
anybody hasn't had the opportunity, definitely check it out. It's a fantastic show. Also got just renewed for a season 2 and a 3 now. It went from limited series to now regular. But from going from that show into this, I was not expecting the high that I am in terms of really good television, and it was again just really, really well done stuff. Really well done stuff, but definitely got to talk more about it into some of the spoilers ahead. So this
Yeah,
is definitely spoiler driven podcast for the people out there listening. So we just
yeah.
want to let you all know that.
Let's talk about our MVP, and then we'll get into the spoilers.
Ooh, Matt, do you have your MVP already in your head? You know who's your MVP? Because I kind of have to. I actually I kind of do have an MVP, but
Um,
I'm gonna let you take
I'm a
the
little
reins.
torn. I'm a little torn on which direction I want to go in on this. Um, see, as much as I want to say Wolverine, because they stuck with him and the storyline flowed with some of the comic stuff, especially towards the end there. I think I'm going to say Cable.
Okay.
Because he's a in all fairness, he was a background character in this. He'd show up here and there, and it was okay. We're going to use you, but we're focusing on the main group. But we're tagging along, and yes, you're pivotal to the plot points.
He,
But it's just you're just hanging out there.
he was more second
But
half. Yeah.
yeah, but some of those things kind of they paid off as things went on, and then he became more centric in the season finale. And the stuff that they did. Now, I mean, granted, they pulled him out, but at the same time, I mean, it was I was kind of amazed by how connected to the character, even on a limited basis, I became, and how just cool he seemed. I mean, Cable was a cool character, but and he's definitely you know hint may become a little more important as things move on. But yeah, I think he was a little underrated, but again, very pivotal, and a lot of everything that happened kind of spun around him. Yeah, if it wasn't for him, and they used him smartly with delivering some of those lines that how many times have you done this? Well, I've been doing this is my 200th time trying to correct things. So and it just delivered with a weight.
Mhm.
So yeah, so I think I will say I'm gonna go with Cable.
Gonna go with Cable? Okay,
Yeah.
that's not a bad choice. That's not a bad choice. Um, I think the the character that really just uh, was just captivating from actually really the second episode to the end. I
You're gonna
think
say
it
Caliban, aren't you?
Magneto. I think Magneto is my MVP of this entire series. I think his complexities. I think again, if you were to go back to just being a kid, it'd be the X Men good, Magneto Brotherhood bad, blah blah blah. But like you said, as the show kind of grew up and more of Magneto kind of really began to make like serious points about certain situations, he became one of the most interesting characters because of his complexities. And he he was always a multi-layer antagonist because you can understand his points view clearly. Like the moves that Magneto made were all for reason. And could you not blame him for making a lot of those moves? Even in like the second episode where he showed incredible strength, even though he could show devastating power in the second episode, which was then confirmed and reassured in the later half of the series of what he did. I thought his writing, man, was amazing from that point on to the ending of the series. Magneto has now shot up to be one of my favorite characters in the X-Men, just from writing alone, just from dialogue, and just even the quips that he made, the intelligent quips that he made against the politicians in certain episodes, amongst other people. Magneto was just a brilliantly written character, man. And I did not expect them to do the thing that they did in the comic books too. That was just a moment straight out of the comic books, man. Well done. Magneto
Yeah,
definitely
they
is
had
my
a
favorite character.
they the one thing I want to say that with this show that and like I kind of touched on it earlier that they did bring in a lot of the comic storyline arcs,
Yes.
um but they didn't use them to their full potential, where I think now they brought in some of the arcs. They kind of built their own. I mean, I didn't read some of the latter X-Men stuff,
Hmm.
where they started to get really crazy, and then when they brought them back, so I don't know if these were any of those stories, but they didn't dumb it down, or they didn't remove as much of the weight that the X-Men can carry
Yeah.
in this, and they really um, went to bat to just really knock the points in the stories and the stuff across the line, across the field. It is yeah, no, Magneto's a very good choice, and I understand that argument. And yes, they, especially again, those last they did great up to those last 3 episodes, and then those last 3 episodes just went even further, I felt.
Oh yeah, it totally pushed. It definitely went next level too. Again, like in terms of even the politics of whatever it is, because unfortunately there are some mirrors of the situations that are being talked about in X-Men that are still current right now to this day.
Which is the point of the X-Men
Well,
comics. There's a lot of
yes,
that stuff that it is, and
this
we've discussed about this.
yeah.
The comics are meant to be political.
Oh, 100%, but though, but like even with the X-Men, let's be honest, they're just simply just trying to live because of who they are. They're being
Hmm.
persecuted for who they are. But there was even moments even where the people that are afraid, aka the humans, you could also understand their plight about the whole situation, about the whole fear mongering and stuff like that. Again, like as a human in the X-Men world, yeah, you are being left behind because you're not the next step of evolution. You're dealing with mutants who can do all this stuff, and even with a certain scene, going back to it just starts simply with fear mongering to the point where even again, it's now heading into a little bit of spoiler territory with certain characters. You could see how, like in right now in today's world, how using some fear mongering, because it's true, about how these mutants are here to take our jobs. They're here to take away your livelihood, the way that you make a living, to the point that humans would go out of the way to volunteer because they simply just care about their because they don't even know what they're signing up to, but they simply doing it just to kind of protect what belongs to them. You know,
Hmm.
so all those moments that continues to be played out into normal society today. It was just really brilliant in terms of how the politics, and another thing too, I think that added more seriously in the weight the politics. Like you said, go into how it deals with real life stuff. I think the little moments of politics that were played into certain scenes, that again we'll get into, definitely hiding up the tension and the decision makings that had to be made. Again, for it's a tough situation because at least like even in the world of politics, you don't get that cookie cutter situation where all the politics hate the mutants. There were clearly certain politicians that were trying to go, you know, trying to bat for them. But in the same line of, if you're a human, there are these superpower natural beings that could destroy as easily with one snap of a finger, which
Yeah.
kind of happened in the series. So, like, you're putting those people in a weird, tough situation. Like, we really want to bat for you, but they're also not wrong about their fear against these powerful creatures. So the way they were able to balance all of that in a 10 episode series, I think that's why I was so shocked that this was good as it should have been.
And by the end of the 10 episodes, I'm like, I'm not done. Please
Yeah.
give me more.
Oh yeah.
I'm not ready for this to be over and have to wait for new episodes.
No, I agree. I think they did such a great job with the cliffhangers and stuff like that. No, no, it's something that we're definitely going to be talking about.
All
And,
right,
and
so why don't we just get on? So if you haven't finished watching the series, pause us here, finish watching X-Men 97 on Disney Plus, come back and resume us and enjoy the rest of the conversation. If you have finished watching X-Men 97, please continue to listen because we will try to tear apart a little more, get into some more meat and potatoes of the show, including some spoilers, including some details, including the death of Mr. Fantastic. I mean, I just don't understand that. no, no, I just though he does make a cameo indirectly. Yeah, yeah, the whole political part of it, yeah, that's just part of the X-Men. That is something that they normally, yeah, if you read the comic books, you know where that comes in.
Mhm.
And just accepting people for people. Um, was that a cheesy line from Scott? Yeah. Yeah, they're battling the main bad guy, and he goes, "No, wait, we need to stop fighting him because we need to accept him for who he is because he is our future." And if he kills us, that's not a problem. That is, I'm like, all right, come on.
Yeah.
Um,
You're being way too kind. He had a lot more cheesier lines than that, but like,
well, yes.
but that is a strong 1%. No.
And
Uh,
then, some of the lines that Xavier was, I don't know if it was the lines themselves, the delivery, or the way that they decided to animate it.
yeah, that
That
could be
just like,
it could be a combination of both. Like it totally could be a combination of both. Like I do, but like I don't know how you felt in that line again with Magneto, where he basically said, "I've been waiting to do this for a very long time," and he threw the medal and says, "Just shut up, shut
yeah,
the up." Like I was like, I kind of was feeling like again, I roll with Xavier, but at this point, I kind of level with Magneto at this point.
yeah,
You've done a whole lot of talking, and you really haven't really helped. If anything, because of you've kind of made things a little bit more
you kind
worse.
of made it worse for her.
Yeah, exactly. So
Um, but again, to your point though about the dichotomy of Magneto and his flight of we are superior, they mean us harm, so we need to do what's going to protect us so we can live our lives
it just
because they
yeah.
fear us, but then he does stuff to make them fear. He resurrects Asteroid M out of wherever that was, and he puts it over the country for everyone to see. Of course, the east coast of the United States, because where else are we going to have all this happen? Um, he starts threatening everybody, and then you have the Sentinels doing people turning into Sentinels left and right because I don't even know how that happened.
Oh yeah.
That there was something about that which was it was cool but weird. I'm like I'm unless if I missed something, did they explain how the Sentinel
The humans,
programming
the
got into
human.
the humans?
Oh yeah, no, because again, when I was explaining, now I can get into a little bit of the spoiler situation. Bastion was the one that created a campaign where humans volunteered for experiments. If you remember that earlier in the episode, and then because I think they brought, I forgot, that blonde senator lady,
Yes.
to a lab, and they showed that they were dunking humans in this vat, that same vat that Mr. Sinister created, I think, off the cable virus. He dumped humans into that vat, which later on became actual live Sentinels, with them not believing it. Again,
Okay.
going back into the whole, here's the plan. You have to just campaign that humans are here to take away your jobs. That's the beginning level, really soon, and it's like the basic future theory, pretty much. You put down the humans, no different than, like, let's say, immigration. I have to bring that into a whole situation right now, where how certain people, foreigners, are coming here to quote unquote take your jobs. Same situation. So when you present that argument to a human that's afraid, that has fear, you can't blame them for them to volunteer and to protect the human race, as per se, against a powerful threat in that
Mm,
situation,
mm,
where
yeah.
all the humans have done, not knowing that later on, Bastion can turn it on with a flip of a switch, and then immediately you went from just being a normal human watching television into be a death-killing mutant sentinel out of nowhere. It's just a
Yeah.
weird situation like that. It's incredible, and I think it's amazing how they played that up.
Yeah, and I think I just kind of glanced over that scene whenever it happened initially.
Mhm.
And that's something else I thought they kind of set things up, for the payoffs brilliantly in this with the writing. So it's something that happened earlier on does explain or play out further into the show. So they did really good with that. Oh, geez. There was something else I wanted to
Mhm.
mention, but now it just slipped my mind.
Okay. Well, I have something to say about you. What did you thought about the villain Bastion overall in terms of that creation too? Again, this is a villain that I really know very little about in the X-Men universe, though. But what was your thought about his character and
Well,
his
from my
presentation?
understanding, he was there. I never, in the time that I was reading X-Men comics, I never remembered him. I don't think he ever showed up.
No.
So I mean, I'm not saying that he didn't exist. I just
Well, because
never
I
saw a
definitely
story arc with him.
yeah, I definitely
Um,
understand his character. You know what that meant. It was zero tolerance. Operation Zero Tolerance. I know that was big in the comic books, which basically was where the story's kind of taken, where this X-Men series kind of took the story in terms of the Human Sentinels and stuff like that. But again, in terms of his writing, in terms of how they handled that character's writing, I thought it was brilliant. Again, I
yeah,
think they
I thought,
Bastion became a real threat like down the road, and the fact that he was able to pull these strings, clearly, the terrible events that happened in Genosha in episode 5 and all the way up to the season finale, they really built this guy to be dangerous and bad.
yeah, I love when you do that with a villain. That it's not just okay. Oh, wait, look, he's the bad guy. There you go.
Hmm.
Because at first you thought, okay, it's going to be Sinister, and all right, here's the Sinister thing again. Oh yes, okay.
Hmm.
But no, they went beyond that. That Sinister was even a puppet to this guy. So okay, if Sinister's a puppet to Bastion, Bastion's got to be something special or something, really strong.
A
And
true threat. Yeah.
yes, and again, it's kind of like Thanos is that he's the bad guy. There's no doubt in your mind what he's doing is wrong and evil, but you understand his point of view.
Hmm.
And by understanding, even though I'm not saying you agree with it or whatever, but if you can understand the point of view that the villain has come from, that makes him even more dangerous or more a better antagonist
Yeah.
in the story arc in the writing. It makes the writing even stronger because I mean, you know the good guys. All right, and go with the good guys to protect. That goes in, and that's already set. But you need to be able to understand the bad guy, and if the bad guy is just the bad guy because he's the bad guy, and no like real justification, no rationale, no anything like that, you have a weak villain. And if you have a weak villain, that makes the rest of the storyline weak.
I totally agree. I,
But
I
you wrote a very strong and very convincing villain that was one step ahead of uh, forget like 5 steps ahead of the good guys. Had the whole thing planned out and just became more powerful and more of a problem as things went on. Um, I don't feel that the end of his arc was too much of a cop out. Um, there was no other way to end it
hmm
than how they did because there was no stopping him. You came really close several times, um, and I was expecting him to have that they were. He's going to lose.
hmm
Just a matter in the form and fashion. Um, pardon me. I was just expecting the X-Men to be able to somehow pull it off, but then you got your boy Cyclops there going, no, you know what? He's actually not so bad. Scott, I think you got hit in the head one too many times with the Sentinel.
No, probably, or maybe he's still dealing with that brain damage that he got when he was a kid that gave him his powers. But
Yeah,
but yeah, again, like you said, your heroes and you're not captivated. You're not as captivating as your heroes without the villains. And I thought Bastion, who came out of nowhere, ended up being a real colossal threat in the X-Men universe, which I honestly think it does a great job of setting up the palette for the next potential villain to in Apocalypse, which is clearly going to be the next storyline that we're going to be heading into, hopefully season 2, and how they're going to play around with the time, the time jumping situation, how the team gets split up in 2 different time eras, and how those 2 areas kind of cross into the present. I think it's going to be definitely played up. It's going to be very interesting how they handle that next big baddie.
Well, yeah, and I'm curious on it in threefold. One, because we're not denying that the fact that any of that part of the show happened before.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they faced Apocalypse in this show in seasons prior.
Correct.
So you can't take that away. And I always thought that Apocalypse was one of the stronger villains from the animated show.
Yeah, that's correct. Yep.
No, not talking physical strength. I just mean like writing and everything that they do always do a good job with them. But now you also have the group 1 of just about anybody except for Cyclops and Jean is dealing with Apocalypse in ancient Egypt. So
3000
way
BC.
back when.
Yeah.
Yep. And then you have Scott and Jean dealing with the children of Apocalypse in the future.
Yeah.
And you introduce the X-Man, which they hinted at that title a few times.
Oh yes, they did.
They dropped. They would say you're not an X-Man, you are the X-Man, and that refers to Nathan Summers, the X-Man, not to be confused with Cable, Nathan Summers. 2 different characters, and this was from when they did a reboot of the X-Men comics in general, and they did this whole dystopian future that happened through the death of Charles Xavier, and that was the one comic book that came out of that survived. However, they retconned the whole thing, but the X-Man comic did survive in that because it was the popularity to it, and that's who that character is that was shown at the very, very end. Well, before you had Apocalypse himself, kind of.
Are you sure? Are you sure? And just to slightly correct
I'm certain on that, but I'm not 100%.
It was if you're referring to the X-Man, I think you're referring to Nate Gray. Nate Gray. Yes. But it is a weird. I think he is from somewhere in a weird. I think he was and I think I remember in the comic because it was an alternate universe where it was Mr. Sinister who went through the same project that in terms of Nate Summers, but I think he was able to create it without either the DNA of originally Summers and Nate without Summers though. I think that's the plot point, but again, I could be wrong. I haven't remembered the comic books, but I know in an alternate universe is where Nate Gray gets created, and he is which also ends up being one of the most powerful mutants in the X-Men mythos in the comics, which was great. Another thing I wanted to kind of touch upon too is like we said, the fact that how the show showed so much maturity, the level of violence I was expect. I didn't know, what did you expect in terms of that too, because they were able to kind of, I get it was still kind of PG-13ish in terms of it and in terms of certain stuff, but I was surprised how dark now this cartoon went in certain moments where you thought like this happens, like, oh wow, they really went there.
Well, kind of moment. The best example of that is the death of Gambit. Where you literally have a tentacle spike of a Sentinel go right through him, through his side, which you see the blood coming out and him then charging it and sacrificing himself and blowing everything up. And then another example is when Wolverine runs his claws through Magneto, and you have the blood dripping down his claws.
Yeah.
And Magneto turning around and pulling all the adamantium out of him, which again you see, and again that is straight up from the comics,
is so funny that you brought that. It also kind of just shows you how restrained Magneto has been with Wolverine this entire
Yes.
time. He has showed so much restraint to that man. It's like I could have done. Remember, I could have done this to you
You
anytime. Anytime
jerk.
I could have done
Put a
this to you
hole in me.
anytime. Yeah, could have done. It's like remember, you put your claws in me, dude. I could have ripped out of you at any
That
moment. You could have been useless in episode 1 right now. Could have done it, you know. But oh my god, dude! Even that moment where Bastion ended up saying night night to I forgot the name of the character. Uh, Ends up I forgot the character with the glasses that end up killing Professor X at the end of the season of the original X-Men series. I forgot his name. Ah, had the glasses. Oh
had
man.
glasses.
Yeah, he was he remember he was one of the archetypes that created the Mega Sentinel for Genosha, and that was the part where Rogue went on a rampage,
Oh,
defining him. Uh,
Trask.
yes, yes, I believe it was Trash. The fact that Bastion went out to choke him out, like that's a moment that you would never saw in the original comic book. But the fact that
Yeah.
even that moment happened, where it's very typical with music playing in the background. Like it's always weird when like a violent death happens and there's like classical music playing in the background. I don't know what's that weird trope that is, but yeah, but again. There was those kind of moments in the show that really took me off guard. Even the moment where Rogue ends up letting that doctor go off the side of the building just out of like out of pure
Oh
rage.
yes.
That was that talk about a moment that caught me off guard too. I was like, damn,
Yes.
like
Yes. That was, and
in
it was very
Metroport,
off-putting, and it was again just like,
this is different.
yeah, yeah. This is
After episode 5 is like, oh wow.
and then over they were in the season finale with the three. So part, I want to say it's part 2. So whenever all the humans turned to the Sentinel,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean you had Wolverine and um, Nightcrawler cutting people up,
Mm-hmm.
and there's body parts flying. I mean, no blood because they're the robots, but body parts flying all over the place, and then they're coming back together,
Yeah.
and then they cut them up again.
Mm-hmm. It was insane. Like it was incredibly insane how how everything done. And I think another thing that I enjoyed about this series is how every hero had the opportunity to shine in their own unique ways, even if not in major plot arcs, but at least in single episodes and singularity moments too. I think another thing too, I felt like sometimes a comic book never really did, which kind of showed you the true power of all the mutants and their skill sets and how they were able to be useful into the obvious team. Like even like the moment in episode 1 where where like Scott Summers is flying skydiving and then he uses his Optima Blast to land the landing, or the moment that a Storm was able to create turn sand into glass because of her powers were so strong. Like there were just great. There's these little great moments where the hero's abilities really shine to the fullest, and I
Mm-hmm.
and that was a really cool moment. It really because like usually cartoons just based on limitations of budget, you really don't have that opportunity to show out how strong these guys can go, and even like for the builds, like again, Magneto basically through the created electronic bomb, basically like
Yeah,
EMP. Like
EMP wiped out all the electronics
he
in the world.
he blocked out the world, which is ridiculously crazy too. Um, and on top of that, let's also just talk about a little bit of the cameos that popped up throughout this entire series, man. I mean, the fact that these cameos that popped up, um, granted, I think it just kind of remember. It was also remember how that, like, shows like Spider-Man and Iron Man and the Fantastic Four are all still based all in the same universe together, pretty much. Even that moment where Bastion was having that meeting with Doctor Doom and Baron Zemo, which
Yeah.
I'll even give credit to, like, Doctor Doom, because he's like, yeah, listen, I do some evil stuff, but I do have a limit of evil I'll go for
I'm
my
all for taking
politics and
over the
stuff.
world and
Yeah.
whatever, but you're just crazy.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. Basically, he said that to Bash. It's like, yeah, I'm cool with this, but this is a little too far, and this is coming from Doctor Doom,
yeah.
which I thought was great. Like,
And then you also, you had Daredevil and Iron Man and Captain America and
he had Cloak and Dagger that
oh, Cloak
popped.
and Dagger. Yes, Cloak and Dagger showed up.
Doctor Strange was trying to keep the lights on while doing surgery. Heck, we even had appearance of Mr. King T'Chaka himself, not T'Challa,
Yes.
King T'Chaka, and basically he also was like, "Hey, listen, before you make this decision," again going back to a lot of the political intrigue, he's like, "Listen, like, even King T'Chaka says, you got to think this one through. If you make a mistake, we can't undo this if things go bad." Along with the fact that the president was looking at the Magneto protocol, like looking at the stat sheet and everything. Like there were some heavy tense moments on top of other tense moments of
Right. And
that
Captain
three-part
America was
episode.
even in on that. He's saying, you know what? They
Yeah.
looked at him for advice. He's like, I wouldn't do, there's got to be another way.
Mm-hmm.
And they just went ahead with it anyway. He's like, this is on you.
Yep.
This is how history's going to remember you.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Like every president has that crisis, and in this show, this was his crisis moment where it's like, yo, you do this and there ain't going back. Like that kind of level of
Yeah.
of intense. Like that that show kind of pushed it that way, man. And oof, man, I'm so looking forward to what season 2 and what season 3 is going to bring. It's so I hope it's not too long, that we're not waiting for more X-Men 97, because they're the fact that they now have gone this way, there's going to be so much rich stories that they're going to be able to pluck from, man. And starting with this apocalypse story, which it's going to be leading into the Four Horsemen eventually down the road. They're already hinting to that. So
I was wondering, are they going to bring Gambit back in that way?
oh, so you do know who Gambit comes back as, right? As one of the Four Horsemen.
He wasn't one of the original Four Horsemen.
I think he wasn't it. I thought he was.
No, that was
in
Archangel.
The comic books.
That was Archangel.
Not in the comic books.
Maybe further along the lines after I stopped reading them, but initially it was Archangel who.
In the show,
it was Angel. Apocalypse rips his wings off of him and turns him into the Archangel, Angel of Death, and then became the Archangel character. And so you had that, but Gambit himself, not when I was reading it.
No, because I do remember. I know that Gambit does come back as Death. He becomes one of the Four Horsemen of Death, though. I mean, that's going to be their way of bringing Gambit back, but they're going to bring him back in that fashion, pretty much. So, but yeah, I think that's what they're going to do for that. But I think you're right. In the comic book, it was done a little bit more differently in the comic book still. But yeah, no, I'm pumped, and I'm excited. And here's another thing too, because now that that this show has kind of introduced that this X-Men 97, I'll call it the 97 verse, because of Spider-Man, because of Iron Man. There are more stories that you can honestly sit down and play around with too.
Mhm.
I mean, there's another great book right now. I think right now was X-Men versus the Avengers. You can now tell that story on comic book form right now, in terms of how they handle, like, I think Scott Summers' Nether daughter. I think it was another. I want to say Nate. There was another. I forgot the girl. I want to say that it was Scott's. I want to say Scott Summers' daughter.
Rachel.
Is it Rachel Gray? Is it?
She became Phoenix. Yes.
Yeah, she becomes Phoenix. Yes, and she becomes a big storyline plot point to that too, because of the Phoenix. So you can play around with that story now if they wanted to, and create it. There's so much extent that can be played. But again, that all does go down to the fact of I am a little concerned and worried of what the series will be after or in between season 2, exactly what season 3 is going to be, now that the original show writer hasn't been with the show. But I figured if season 2 becomes another banger head into season 3, I think Disney would have to reconsider trying to bring him back onto the show. I mean, it's been a colossal hit, in terms of just rave reviews. I think I was reading it in Rotten Tomatoes, it still holds a 99, and then the audience score is still a 94. So it's been a colossal hit,
But and not
the
even
way
just
they come
that.
in.
Disney they announced that strong race to the finish line with strong final audience. Has said promising track records for Disney Plus. The episode, which debuted on May 15th, saw 3.5 million viewers globally, and its first 5 days on the streaming platform. That makes it the most viewed full-length animation series finale since season 1 of What If.
Yep.
So, X-Men 97 premiered in March with 4 million views collectively across the first 2 episodes in their first 5 days. So, between the first 2 episodes and their 4 million views to finish with 3.5 in the final episodes, that's only a 500,000 drop off.
Yeah, which is not bad.
Is nothing.
No.
Over 10 weeks to be able to keep that much of your initial audience engrossed. That says a lot.
No, it definitely does. I think it definitely does. I think, again, it just makes me excited for more too. And when you start to have that word of mouth to other people, it's like, no, you definitely want to watch X-Men 97 right now. This is not the show you watched back when we were kids, man.
Ooh.
It grew up with us, man. It totally did grow up with us. I think that whirlwind is only going to get more excited now. When X-Men comes back. I just hope it comes back soon, because that'd be such a shame that we have to wait for like 2 years for season 2.
Which is the unfortunate reality. Sometimes you do have to wait that long. I mean, hopefully, since it's established, you have an animation style, you have a lot of things already figured out. It doesn't take long to get things going. But whenever it does come back, I'll be watching.
So will I, man.
Anything else you want to add there, Mr. Isaac?
Nope, that's it.
Yeah, well, thank you for coming aboard. So let us know what you thought. Join the conversation on our social media platforms that I told you at the beginning of the show. We're found just about everywhere at WD Magic Cast. We want to thank you for your time. I know how little time we all have, and the fact that you got to spend some of this time together with us truly means a lot to us, to me, and to us over here at WD Magic Cast. We cannot thank you enough for coming back week after week. Please, if you can, go to Apple Podcasts, go to Spotify, leave a rating or review there. We have all 5-star reviews at the moment. Keep them coming. The more you do, The more people who give us reviews on those platforms, the more those platforms will promote the show for everybody for free. And it just takes 2 minutes of your time, and also it's nice because we get to hear and see that you appreciate our work over here. Don't forget to tell your friends, share it out on the social medias, tag us in on it so we can say thank you in person. But yeah, share out your favorite episode or latest episode that you're listening to people and let them know about the show, or just tell them in person. Because the more people we have in this family, the bigger. Walt believed in a big Disney family, and so do I. Don't forget to subscribe to the show while you're at it as well. This way you always know when new episodes drop or posted. Last week was the little delay because between editing and also Spotify decided to change up the password system yet again. Took a little longer than I wanted. But consider becoming a premium subscriber. Truly help the show out. You can do this over at the Spotify podcast website. Links are in the show notes for that and for social media and for the shop that I mentioned at the beginning, where you can get yourself some cool WD Magic Cast swag and help the show out at the same time. Because remember, the show is brought to you by listeners like you. Whatever troubles and whatever doubts you're facing out there, whatever darkness seems to be coming from within, it is not. The darkness is outside of you. And inside of you is a light. It is light. Let that light shine for everyone to see how beautiful and how wonderful you are. There's only one of you, and there's a reason for that. Because you are special, because you are unique, and because you are needed in this world. You are someone that we need, this planet needs to go forward. You may not necessarily change the world, and that's okay. But you have probably touched someone's life in a way that you don't know. And that speaks volumes. Never give up, never give in on yourself. And if you need help, help is out there. Sometimes it's a stranger. Sometimes it is the person right next to you. But never be afraid to ask for help. And then to end this week's show with a quote from Walt Disney himself. I am not an economist, but things are not as bad as they seem. I have a great deal of confidence in our future. Again, that's from Walt Disney. Thank you again for listening, everyone, and I'll see you next time.